Hello, Abby. You hear me?
So Carlos, Avi is not able to use her camera, but she can chat.
Okay, thank you, Abby. So I can see your message. Um, so what we can do as well, you can type your questions if you have any doubt there during the previous week and the running week or about the course. Feel free to type your question. And also you can try to fix your mic at least. It should be great. Oh, okay. That is great. And I mean, what we can do maybe is we can go through your experience, so maybe week by week. So what do you think about week one? Uh, so maybe you can, okay. So maybe we can uh, uh, try to discuss. So in the poll question, so what do you think about the ideal average Australian spend should be on R&D? So maybe we can uh, approach that question and maybe discuss that with you if you agree. So maybe you can share there in the messages. So what percentage do you choose, and maybe discuss also why. And also feel free to ask any other questions. So I'm just suggesting that we can go through this. But basically, this session is any question that you could have. Yeah, yeah, here in Australia. So what do you think should be the best or the ideal investment Australia should spend? So in the material, maybe you saw that there are different percentages, and it's sometimes measured based on the GDP of the country. So their developed countries is they have some higher spendings compared to other countries, and Australia is and behind compared to developed countries in the spending or investment in R&D. So maybe there you can share your thoughts about that. So what do you think Australia is below the compared to other countries and why? Okay, so you said like you went for around 10% in the R&D investment because it's key for innovation and opening new markets. Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a good shoes and also a good classification. And most of the students, so maybe you saw in the discussion, so they choose at least 5%. So it needs to be 5% or about 5%. And they agree with you that is key for innovation and also opening new markets. Uh, So the students also choose the 5%, at least 5%, because they benchmark with other countries. So in other countries, it's around 5, 6, 7% in developed countries, for example, US, or Germany. And so that's why uh, they they choose that percentage. And another other reasons is the only way that the companies see to remain competitive against other markets. And yeah, and so I'm not sure you had any other comment there or any other comment about spending of investment in R&D. Yeah, okay. Um, so I mean, I don't know if you have any other questions about the model in week one. So in general, do you have any experience in the in in applying for a grant in your research area? So I'm not sure you can share what is your area of research and if you have any experience applying for a grant there, a grant applications to fund your projects or activities. So what are you a student now or are you a researcher? Yeah, okay. Oh, okay. And have you ever have any experience applying for a grant or to be involved in applications inside your team or uh, there in your institute? And what is the most exciting part that you can share with us? And I mean, you mentioned there in the chat room that you are so you begun your PhD in marine restoration, but you come from a NGO background. So and there is a lot of application grants, and you mentioned that there you have experience applying for grants. So maybe you can share with us. So what has been your experience there and your involvement? Okay, so you mentioned that you have never been in the side of the financial side and legal side, and you are keen to learn about this. And you mentioned Evie mentioned that her experience is more in the writing, the funding sales, each rather than budgets. Yeah, I mean this is a good course that you can have um, um, a son of the what is the funding environment here in Australia, uh, and also how to set up a budget and also how to manage the budget. And also what is your role as a researcher and it can be also as a research manager. Uh, so far, have you learned something that can be helpful for your interest in the in this uh, for a grant application, considering the financial and legal responsibilities? Have you learned something so far that it can be helpful to you? Yeah, so in the chat box, you mentioned that this call has been helpful for you. Uh, a bit more about collaborations, how to reach out and how to reach out to other researchers. And about the question that you mentioned, uh, so I spoke with my coordinator. So the question about the week two quiz is still broken. And I'm not sure all of you are in the background, so you can uh, help to answer this question. So, uh, but she mentioned uh, that when you try 10 times the quiz and you fail, so the quiz is blocked. And but she's working on that, so I'm still waiting for her to send me what was the issue and how it can be fixed. But they are already aware of this about the week two quiz. So and I will let you know once I have some news and how to fix this. I think our other students they are having the same issue as you, and I saw that in the student cafe. And so you mentioned like you learning how to find um collaborations. Can you share more about this? Can you share what have been interested for you, or how do you think you can use this information to find collaborators? Maybe you can type there in the chat box. Yeah, okay. So but you mentioned that having more preparation that should go on before you approach someone to collaborate. That is um, way better to go with more than just an idea. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, finding collaborators, usually if you know someone inside your network people that you know and you work with or you have worked with. That should be the base start point. And because you already know the researchers and what the other researcher is working with. And also there is a background as well of interaction. So it should be easier to find a collaborator with a researcher that you already know. But when it's a totally new researcher, so the best way is to try to provide as much information as possible. It's like you are getting sending your expression of interest or your CV to for a job opportunity. So try to be like that and explain it in detail. So and also what is the value proposition for the researcher in case that they agree to involve in your project. And I mean that should be my experience and my suggestion. And usually the collaborator is because you need a collaborator because you have a gap in your expertise and also in your project. So and based on that, you start to find people or researchers working in that area. Uh, and also the collaborator, it depends on the grants, and as you know, based on the material that you review, is very competitive. So if your collaborator has a very high impact factor academic profile, so those ones are the best ones to approach because the higher the impact factor of the researcher, the higher the chances to get the grant because they are highly competitive. And actually, there is also there in the week 2 question. So what do you think? Oh yeah, so one of my experience was to uh, uh, in the application for an advanced Queensland industry fellowship. So basically, there I can talk about that experience, but that advanced Queensland industry fellowship is very competitive, highly competitive, and I was with a company working there, but we also been collaborating with a professor in QUT in the Queensland University of Technology, and basically, so the project that we propose, it has some background already. So we have been working on that project. We have some research already done between the university and the company. And also the professor here in QUT, they have a outstanding career already. And also the company is a recognized company here in Australia. And so there's a lot of questions in when it's in any grant, so you need to justify and give answer why your project is good for or how it fits in the grant application. And basically here, so the experience in finding collaborators, so it was already there. So more than finding, as I mentioned before, when once you have the people around, so you just need to continue working with that. And so one of the key things here so was to properly answer all the questions and also receive feedback from the university. So in every university, they have a department that they review your applications and provide feedback based on their experience. So it's another thing that you can consider as well. So always asking for feedback. And key feedback, so I received from my uh, from the professor here in the university. And another thing is the funding. So in the funding, basically, so usually it's a match scheme funding. So it's 1-to-1. So the grant is providing the half of the money that you are requesting, and the other half is it come from the company or the university as well. So in this case, it was a collaboration between the Australian government, QUT, the university, and the company. So all these three sectors, so they were providing money. And one of the keys here, so sometimes it's a one-to-one scheme, but if you provide, the company provides more than is requested, so you have the chances increase. So in my case, it was around 70%. The company supporting apporting money, and the other part come from the grant and also the university. And I mean, it's also important when you apply. In the case of the fellowship, so it's basically you are applying for it's a grant that you can use to pay your own salary as well. I mean, you request money for yourself basically. So this is the fellowship, but there are other grants that you cannot request salaries. You are the chief investigator. So for example, the RC linkage, so you cannot request their salaries to pay your own salary, but it helps to increase your impact factor, academic impact factor. So once you are very well established, for example, in a research institute and your salary comes from other sources, so it's easier to collaborate with other people because basically you are not requesting money for yourself. So because you already covered that, and that it helps increase your academic profile and also maybe the publications because you are collaborating with several people in the paper. So because you are contributing to that work, so your name is going to be in the papers, and that helps to increase your academic profile. And so that is a way how to actually to increase your impact factors you want to pursue in an academic career, academic environment career. So in my case, I have always been in the interface between industry and academia. So I'm working now in different projects and but all with industry. So my research is maybe it's 50% apply, so it's what the company needs, and the other 50% is more academic, so some research to get some publications, some novelty. But sometimes the companies, they want, for example, just use your skills to resolve an issue, but that issue is not really for publication, but they help to them to resolve the problem. And sometimes some companies, they don't accept to publish papers. So if you do that, so you need to patent first. So you need to set up submit a patent application, I mean an IP protection before to publish. And that is sometimes the issue working with companies, that you need to wait for a long period of time before you can start to publish. So when you work with the university only, so the purpose of working with the university is always to publish the papers. So that is our goal, and also use the material for teaching purposes as well, it can be. And also how to involve the students in your research. When you work with the industry, it's a little bit different, and because you are dependent of the industry as well. So it's always an agreement as well between the institution and also the company. And I mean, you need to agree this from the very beginning. So there is an agreement that you set up and how it's going to be work the grant. And sometimes when there are issues in this type of agreements, so you can always go back to the guidelines of the grant application. So there are some notes there. So sometimes it says from the very beginning, or it's very clear in the grant application, in the guidelines, that all the IP is going to belong, for example, to the industry. Or you need to agree. If not, so you need to agree, arrive to an agreement with the university. Yeah, but And I have been applying for several grants, so you aren't always successful. So as I mentioned, it's very competitive. And I have been involved in grants that are successful. So the other one successful was, for example, Advanced Business Knowledge Traffic Partnership. So, and also this Advanced Quiz Industry Fellowship. So, and also one RC linkage. And I mean, also for when I was doing my PhD, so I applied for a scholarship. So, and basically that is also a grant application. So every time that you asking for money to study or to get to evolve in your research career, and also for my master degree, also I have a scholarship. So, and for that you need to prepare an application. Yeah, but that has been my experience so far in these collaborations, and basically all the material in the model, the financial legal concepts for researchers model. So everything that I have been experienced, so is there. You can review all that, and you can at the end you should have a very good son of the Australian environment for financing your research project. Yeah. Hopefully I answered your question. So I'm not sure if you have any other question. Oh, okay. Great that I answer your question. So maybe we can also, because it's uh, so 1 hour session, so we can also go up to the week 2 question. Because as I mentioned before, so the grant applications are very competitive. And there was a poll question there. So what do you think, or what is your view on competitive research grant funding? So what do you think about this? What is your thoughts about this competitive research grant funding scheme? And another good question in week 1, it was so uh, so what do you think also in terms of the R&D investment? So there is a correlation between R&D investment and the success in the company. So I mean, the more you invest in R&D in the company, do you think it's going to be a more successful company? Maybe that can be a good question as well to answer if you have any comment there. Yeah. So you said on the question, what is your view about the competitive grant funding scheme? So you said that it's difficult to how you will move away from that model. Yeah. So in the discussion forum, so in the discussion forum, the students they choose. So 84% of the students they selected the competition is a poor way to allocate funding, but it's the best way that we have. And they gave examples of the research areas and nation grants that they have available. And so they mentioned that how this is the best way, but this is affecting the early career researchers. So these are competitive scams. So for early career researchers, basically they are just starting to have a um, an academic profile, so is increasing. And some researchers, they come sometimes from pure academic environment, and they have more publications compared to other researchers that they come from the industry. And usually in the academic environment, so publications is the way how you show how strong you are in that area. And I mean that is it makes sense. The answer of those researchers, and I mean the students, because 80%, most of them, so they mentioned that it's a poor way to allocate funding, but it's the best way. So and one of the experience most of the researchers here share with everyone is because this competitive scheme, basically you can get a grant for 3 years, for example. You can develop your project, but after 3 years, so you need to reapply for another grant or look around for other fundings. And it's a constant process, and every time it's more competitive. And there is a point like you can fail in all your grant applications, and it can be the end of your career if you don't have the opportunity to publish papers compared to other researchers. And it's a concern that everyone has here as a researcher, especially in the academic environment. And there are some discussions around and how this can be reduced or mitigated, but it's always a concern. And also about the question I did to you on the correlation between R&D investment and success in the company. So you mentioned some more investment into core funding to maintain staff for longer, allowing better quality research. And yeah, as I was explaining, so you come from an ecological background, and grants are always too short for the length more uh, of monitor needed. Yeah, so yeah, I mean, there are different type of grants. So some are 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. So usually it's 3 years grant. So and yeah, and so yeah, you mentioned more investment in the core funding, so to maintain staff for longer. Yeah. Yeah, that should be one of the approaches to keep our good uh, quality researchers. Yeah, okay. And another question in the week 3. So what do you think may be the most difficult stage in applying for funding? Oh, okay. I mean, it's a 1 hour session, so if you do have any other question, so we can um continue discussing if you have any other questions. So maybe if you have any questions about the running week 3. I think after if we cover the week 3, so we can be happy to maybe finish the session. But I mean, it can be interesting if we can also discuss the running week. I'm not sure if you have any question there. So there is a poll question there in the week 3. So what do you think might be the most difficult stage in apply for funding? So yeah, in yeah, so in the poll question of week 3, so do you have any comment there? So it's the poll question is, what do you think might be the most difficult stage in apply for funding? So there, the students choose finding the right collaborator. So it was the people who um okay, so you mentioned for the week 3, so you vote for option A, which is formulating a funding strategy. This is a large and often unfunded task requiring a range of expertise to estimate project lengths and budgets in what should be a novel piece of research. Yeah, I agree with you. It's it's something that uh, it needs to be set up in it's hard to set up this part, formulating the funding strategy. As a suggestion here should be to know what is the budget. So usually, uh, based on what research you want to do, what activities, what resources do you need, what people, facilities, collaborators. So you can make a rough estimate in the budget and discuss this with the collaborators. Maybe it can be a collaboration with the company or with another university or inside the university. So, and based on this, you can look for a grant. It can be a small, I mean, the grants, it depends, but they have a limit in the, in the funding. So depending on your estimate in the funding strategy, so you can look for a grant that it can fit. And actually, once you are formulating the funding strategy and also the budget, so you can have what is going to be the look like of the project. So usually you have a goal in your project, so you want to resolve a problem, resolve an issue, and based on that goal, so you can start to divide your activities, and every activity will have a cost. Will need a skill expertise on that area. So basically, the budget can help you to see uh, what are you going to need in your project. Yeah, and most of the students they selected in that question the finding the right collaborators. Uh, yeah, the finding the right collaborators it can be challenging. So because it's not just finding the collaborators, it's also evaluating. So what are the conflict of interest as well? So And those agreements sometimes are challenging and they take time. And sometimes, so you are the chief investigator of that project, so you should always consider what is going to be the value proposition for your collaborator. And based on that, so it can be easier to find or to convince your collaborator to work with you. Yeah, and also there's another section in the week 3. So basically, I mean, you have not done that, so I encourage you can do, but it's basically to find the student cafe, another researcher that is doing something similar to you, and try to set up a project, simulate that you are working together and are discussing how to collaborate. So you have done that, so maybe you can share. If not, so you can work on that as well. So I encourage you that. Have you tried the discussion tool of the week 3? Oh, okay, great. Can you share something there? Okay, so you mentioned that it was hard to find someone that have a similar area to you, and going in without an intro feels uncomfortable. Yeah, it's great that you enjoy doing that. So yeah, but basically it's something that uh, we need to do, and not always it's going to be easy. So especially the finding the right collaborator. And sometimes the other people is too busy as well. They don't have time to work with you, and I mean they don't know you as well. And uh, yeah, so I mean, the more you try, the better it's going to be in terms of uh, succeeding that part. And also, once you have a very high impact factor, so you are not going to really look for collaborators. Sometimes you will receive from other people invitations to collaborate with them. It's how it works. So usually you are very your expertise is very strong in a very specific area in your research, and people start to see your publications, and maybe you're in conferences and your teaching activities, networking, and they start to know you, and with that, so they help to find collaborators as well and to succeed in that. So usually the higher the impact factor of your research or your academic profile, so the easier it's going to be to find a collaborator, because other researchers as well, they are looking for to succeed in any grant applications, and they know that the higher the impact factor of the researchers, the higher the chances they will have. Yeah, I think I mean we cover all most of the things during the 3 weeks. So I mean we are at the end of the week 3 now, and so I encourage everyone to uh, to review, to use the discussion forums, to use the workbook activity there as well to discuss the week 3 discussion 2 section. So you can revisit the learning outcomes and so once you do all that, so you can review again all the information on the week 3, and you can go to the you can do the week 3 quiz. And I mean, we are close to the end of the week 3, so the next week is going to be week 4 is going to be money, costing, and managing research budgets. Yeah, I think maybe we cover most of the aspects in or the purpose of this session, which was basically discuss what have been your experience, and so maybe we can stop here the session. I mean, in case you don't have any other question, but we can get ready for week 4. Yeah, thank you very much, Abby, and hope we can continue interacting in the discussion forums and the student cafe, and see you in week 4. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Hi, Ola, are you still there? Okay, everyone. So I just want to conclude this session, and as I mentioned, so this the end of week 3, and we are going to continue with week 4, which is money, costing, and managing research budget. And see you during the week. Thank you very much.